Welcome to the 4 Pillars of Men's Health, a podcast of resources for restoring vigor and vitality, bringing you top influencers in the men's health arena, case studies of men who have succeeded and how they did it, and cutting-edge teaching on men's health issues from America's leading men's health guru, Dave Skattum. Get ready to take steps towards good health. Here's your host, Dave Skattum.
Hey guys, welcome to the 4 Pillars of Men's Health. It's so fascinating to me when I look around and see all these different guys that I know and all the different journeys that each person has taken to get to a place of good health. And that's why I'm so excited about this series of podcasts I'm doing called Your Story, about people's individual journey and how they did it, how they got to a place of good health. And I'm really excited to have a good friend of mine on my podcast. His name is Tom Stenzel. Tom, thanks for being here today. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
You're welcome, Dave. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And I'm really looking forward to what you have to say. I know you're a real philosopher and you really think things through at a deep level. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about this whole thing of men's health. But I want to introduce you to our audience. And Tom Stenzel is a retired hotelier, I think he calls himself. But he had a hotel in Bozeman, Montana for years and years and did a fabulous job with that and recently sold that. And now he's a professional speech coach. He helps a lot of people learn how to hone the skill of speaking. He's also delves into psychology, and he's just a really genuinely good person. He's a 5th degree Aikido black belt, and so he's just a really determined, on top of it kind of a guy. And Tom, I always like to start these podcasts off with I'm super curious about just what is it in your life right now that is like getting you out of bed in this morning? What's on in the morning? What's on the front burner in your life? What's like just getting you jazzed up every day?
Well, about 6 years ago, my wife got me a Christmas present, and it's a coffee maker, and it brews everything. It grinds my beans. It has water in it. All I do is push a button, and that is what gets me up in the morning.
That's a good one.
So you
and it grinds them and cooks them That is good. All right,
I know you didn't
good.
Expect that one, did you?
I did not. That was like that was good. Hey, so let's just talk. Let's just jump. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say.
So I
had a visit with a friend this morning, and I asked him how he's doing, and he's one of my Aikido students. He's actually about 10 years my senior. But he said, "How's this coronavirus COVID thing going?" He says, "I've saved about $800." And I said, "Well, how?" He says, "I don't go to coffee shops anymore."
I
paid my coffee maker because, it paid for itself in about 6 months. So it's not an inexpensive coffee maker. But we didn't come here to talk about coffee, right?
Yeah, that's right. So let's start off with, I'm just curious. I think when I think of man and manliness and men in general, a thing that always happens with me in my visual brain is I go back to the Greek and Roman times when I look at those. I imagine those statues of these guys, these artists that shipped out these incredible monuments of manhood and these statues. And I'm just curious, if you, Tom Stenzel, could place an ideal man up on one of those Greek columns and say, you know what, this person who is this guy right here is the definition of good health, how would you describe that person?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. And it's not going to be somebody who looks like a Greek god. Believe me. They're going to be an ordinary man. Since we're speaking about men, okay? And I don't want to seem sexist here. I could easily put a woman on that pedestal as well. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Sure.
However, it's going to be an everyday guy that takes care of his body. He eats right. He's got a great relationship with his spouse, his partner. He actually has a great relationship with his kids. He can have conversations with them. He's got, a pretty organized house. He's not perfect, but he goes through his days content with his relationships. He's made the amends, the apologies to people he's offended, because we've done it all. And he's closing those doors. He continues to open other doors with other relationships. And he's also, and here's the key thing, Dave, he's a lifelong learner. So, in a nutshell, that's my idea of what that person would be.
That's cool. So I like to just like hone into a couple of these. You mentioned, somebody that takes care of their body, has good relationships with their significant other or kids, people in their life. They're relatively organized, content, and then a lifelong learner. I would like to know just a little bit deeper your thoughts on, of all the things that you could say about a healthy person. One of them you mentioned was contentment. Open that up a little bit for me. What's that? Why is that important? How does that relate to men's health or health in general? Open that up a little bit for me.
Well, I'll start with this because we're in the middle of this COVID thing right now, Dave, and I'm going to theorize for a moment that, I was reading and talking to a friend of mine the other day that said that some of the demographics, the age group that's been hit pretty hard in Montana are 30 to 40-year-olds. Now, isn't that interesting? Oh. And what I say about 30 to 40-year-olds today is they are probably some of the most stressed people on the planet, at least maybe even in Montana, because they've got mortgages, they've got debt, they've got kids, both spouses probably work. I say probably. Yeah. They've got a lot on their plate. And so stress is one of the biggest killers. And contentment would be maybe the opposite of that. And so to stay healthy, we need to find that balance. To answer it in another way, I think finding and searching for contentment is an antidote for the chronic stress and anxiety that a lot of people suffer today, especially in the middle of this crisis that we're suffering right now. And, the way to do that is to have a structure and a foundation where people can start their days. And I think that's true of most anybody in motivational inspiration would say the same thing. And I get up at 5 to 5:30 a.m. every single day. Mm-hmm. And I have a ritual. And after that lovely caffeine I have, or while I'm using it, I read inspirational books. I meditate. And I do either Qigong or yoga every single day. So I take care of my body, mind, and spirit. Right. And I don't know whether I mentioned this or where that's going to be, but when we talk about the stress today, many of the people suffering today are those 30 to 40-year-olds because they've got so much stress in their lives based on the mortgages, kids, other debt, toys, whatever it is. Right. They need relief from that. We all need relief from that. So, but the contentment that I'm talking about really has to do, and here's a theme that's been coming through for me, is find your joy. We've got to find that. We've got to discover what that is in our lives and use that as a leader in our lives every day.
Yeah. So, man, I really relate to that, because for us, we were in our business is a essential business. So we just kept going through this thing, but it seems like I would wake up in the morning just like going as hard as I could, and then at night I had a hard time winding down, and and it was like the opposite of contentment. I was like so wrapped up in go that it was hard to get to that place where I could just sit back and be, I'm happy with this. I'm okay with where I'm at. I never really got to that place. And so what if people are in that rat race or that intense place in their life, what are some things that you can say to them about contentment and reaching contentment? How do you get contentment in your life?
Well, there's a term that you may have heard. It's called equanimity. Equanimity. And that means receiving what we experience in the world with equal amounts of balance. Whether it can be seen as negative or positive, it's just what it is in the moment, Dave. And sometimes those things, we can do nothing about that except accept what's happening and move through that. Now, one of the places that as a speaking coach and as a movement artist that's been doing this for over 40 years, closer to 45 years, is in the East with Aikido, Qigong, and even yoga. Our breath is so important. And what's interesting, when I listen to speakers, I watch the way they breathe. And we're not going to go into a breathing lesson right now, but most people, Dave, don't pay attention to their breathing. And that's life. And if we're not breathing correctly, what's happening is we're not feeding our bodies the oxygen it needs. No wonder people get anxious. Shoot, try holding your breath, for 5 times in an hour. You'll get anxious about that.
Yeah.
But learning how to breathe and paying attention to our breath is so fundamentally important to contentment.
Yeah.
And it's part of a meditation practice too, and that's something different.
Yeah.
But breathing, good speakers, know that as a speaker yourself.
Yeah.
How we can tell if somebody's on a stage, if they're nervous or not, by their breath. Just by their breath.
Yeah.
So something interesting to think about, Dave.
Yeah, I see that. I'm glad you brought that up, because I see that strong correlation between just being able to get to a place of being a content person and how, deep breathing and focusing on your breath can bring you to that place. So let's turn a corner here. We talked about the ideal healthy guy. You mentioned, a healthy body, focusing on a good health, relationships, being organized, contentment, and lifelong learning. So as you look around, what do you see as, maybe the top 1 or 2 things that happen in our world that causes us to be unhealthy? As you look out over the landscape, what do you see happening out there that causes, in your mind, the most unhealthiness in our society?
Well, I would say the foundation of what's causing an unhealthy lifestyle in individuals is a lack of mindfulness about what they're doing. And so we're going to jump into this because I know that you are a nutrition man.
Yeah.
Is people aren't eating right.
Yeah.
People are just not eating right. They're not fueling their bodies correctly. And they're not taking the time to do that. That's one of the things I see out there. The obesity rates in this country have skyrocketed in the last 20 years. There is not a state in this country, Dave, that is less than 20% of the population being obese. We haven't even gone into the And along with that goes all the other illnesses. Type 2 diabetes. We've got hypertension.
Heart disease.
We've got cardiovascular disease. You see, I said mindfulness, but without that, we're fed, metaphorically speaking, a false bill of sale with the terms of how we need to take care of our bodies. So we have to take personal responsibility, question everything. There you go.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so that the mindfulness, the mindfulness you could plug that into all areas of your life. Mindfulness in eating, mindfulness in thinking, mindfulness in setting goals for your life. But mindfulness in all these areas would be pretty incredible. And I can see how that ties back to Dave, your whole idea of contentment.
Right. And Dave, for the listeners that are listening to this, here's my challenge. The next time you fill up with gas and pray, you don't go do this, but you go into the convenience food store to get a snack, stop for a moment and ask yourself, what do you normally get? And ask yourself, do you really need it? Do you?
That's convicting.
And you know what? It may take 10 times before whoever's listening goes, you're right, I don't need that.
Yeah.
And once that happens, go to a grocery store and buy a bag of nuts, buy some fruit, and carry some good food in your car. That's a start. That is just scratching the surface.
That's great.
So you're not buying a candy bar. You're not buying chips. I mean, I love potato chips, by the way, like anybody else does. I just don't eat them all the time.
Yeah.
I just don't need them every day. So.
Yeah, that's cool. Great, man. Good stuff, Tom. Here, so I'm just curious about. I know a little bit about your past, but if you look back over your past and you could think, you know what, here's a situation or here's a person that entered my life or a circumstance that happened to me that was key in making me a healthy person. As you look back, maybe it was a family member, maybe it was a crisis that happened that really changed the way you thought or whatever. But what is one or two key things that you can look back on, say, put your finger right on it and say, you know what, this happened and this made a huge difference in my journey to becoming a healthy person? I've
got two people in mind. The first one is one of my mentors. When I got my degree in counseling back in the 80s. And Lynn, I'd go into her office and I'd be complaining about something in my life, something that wasn't working. And she'd respond by saying, well, have you done this? And I'd respond, well, I'm trying. And she'd get really disgusted. And she'd take her pen off her, she'd just grab her pen off the table and throw it back down on the desk. She'd say, Tom, try to pick up that pen. Just try to pick up that pen.
Wow.
And of course,
wow.
You know what I do. I'd pick it up. and this was like pre-Yoda,
Yeah.
She wasn't even a Star Wars fan. Like, do or do not. Yeah. Just try. She just said, you did. You did that. So what's the problem? Okay. Wow. So that made me face my fears about, and blaming myself for not doing something. So there is no try, right? The other man was actually a Catholic priest. And, I come to him once in a while, and it wasn't in confession. So I'm a cradle Catholic, and that's another story.
Yeah.
But he'd go, Thomas, I tell him what I was doing, let's say in my meditation life or whatever. And he'd look at me and he'd puff himself up. He said, Thomas, you're being scrupulous, too scrupulous. It means I was overthinking the problem. He said, and what that leads me to is that I'd let the squirrel cage go in my head. And I'd get going on a problem, and I wouldn't let the fears go. So those two people, are really synonymous, and they never knew each other. But hear me, it's taken me years to absorb the principles and the other principles I got from them. It's not an instant thing. This is not interesting culture where it happens overnight. It takes work. And just like you mentioned at the beginning, a lifelong learner. I mean, we all constantly have to rehash this stuff and reintroduce it to ourselves and
revisit it and redo it in our life. Things are always changing.
Dave, I look at the streaming services today, Netflix and Amazon Prime, and there's a plethora of programs, good programs to watch, series. But Dave, if people are still spending 5 to 7 hours a day watching these things, they're frittering away their time. They could spend half that studying something new. And these are the days to do it, too. These are the days because if people lose their positions and jobs, we have to learn new skills, new information. This is the time to do it.
Yeah. Wow. That is really good. Yeah. So, Tom, good stuff here. Just these terms: contentment, breathing, equanimity, mindfulness. There is no try. Overthinking the squirrel cage. Good, really good stuff. If we could take some of these, just even one or two of these things that we've talked about today, and apply them and go deep with them and entrench them in our life, it would be dramatic for us. So, good stuff. Thanks for sharing that with us. If you here, I'll wrap this up. Last question, and then we'll do like a little final thing. But if you, Tom Stenzel, I'm placing a crown on your head and giving you a magic wand, and if you could take this wand and wave it all over the world and make one or two changes, what would you do to make people more healthy?
Okay, that's a really good question. If I had a magic wand, and magic wand, hear that, magic.
Yeah.
I would, based on the time zone of each individual living in their specific spot on this planet Earth, I would create a media blackout during the evening hours, at least 2 hours of blackout, where there would be no media available. No television, no internet, no radio. And here's why. Blaise Pascal said in the 16th century, I believe it's 16th century, 1700s, he said, the cause of all mankind's problems is not being able to sit alone in a room for 1 hour. That was many hundreds of years ago, centuries ago. He knew it then. Is that we have to get to know ourselves and not let what we see and hear dictate what we believe in, because most everything is in our heads is a belief system that's designed by somebody else. We have to reset the button and allow ourselves to be truly free thinkers. So that would be my magic wand.
That is incredible. Just think, if that were a reality, what difference that would make in our society. The relationship would improve, health would improve, all kinds of things we'd be more productive as a society. It would be amazing. Yeah. Excellent.
It would be absolutely amazing. So I say 2 hours, might be an hour. That might be a little bit traumatic for some people. Seriously.
That's right. For our limited capacity. Yeah. That's really good, Tom. Good job. Hey, so to wrap things up, we're near the end of our time here, but if somebody, I know, and I would recommend that people come and talk to you, especially if you are trying to improve your speaking ability, or if you just have some general questions about life. I know, Tom, you have really thought deeply about a lot of subjects about living well, and if somebody wants to get a hold of you, or is there a way, phone number, email, website, whatever? How could somebody get a hold of you if they wanted to get a hold of you and just chat about some of the stuff we've talked about?
Just email. Email is fine for now. Tom at speakingstrong.com. Okay. It's that simple.
All right.
Great. I don't take a lot of clients today. I'm not in a position, luckily, to do that. I believe in working deeply with individuals, and I don't believe it's a numbers game. So for the people who want to work, I'm happy to work with them, but I don't offer instant solutions either, Dave. Know that.
Right. Exactly. Yep. I hear that. That comes right out of you. It's not. There's no quick fixes. So that's pretty good. Hey, so I'll include that in our show notes here. But why don't we just wrap this up with any final last parting thoughts or comments you have about health in general? And I just want you to know, Tom, before you say anything, I just want you to know I really appreciate you as a friend, but also appreciate you sharing this information on this podcast. And I really think it's going to make a big difference in a lot of people's lives. So thanks for being here. And why don't you wrap us up with some amazing Stenzel thoughts for us?
Well, to gain contentment, to find out who you are, each of you listeners, I challenge you to do something that I learned a long time ago, and that's at the end of the day, perform an examination of your conscience. And this is not about being guilty, but ask yourself, is there anything I could have done a little bit better today? So tomorrow when I get up, I can improve on that. And that includes diet, eating. It could mean relationships. It could mean thinking, that squirrel cage in their head. And finally, do this. Smile more and work on giving compliments to other people. Pass it on to other people. The one thing this world needs is more happiness and contentment. And you can do that. You can start the contentment circle by complimenting somebody for very little things, by how they look, what they say, or what they do.
You've been listening to The 4 Pillars of Men's Health with Dave Skattum. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit the4pillarsofmenshealth.com.